Some comrades say it's lit, right? lit. Real, live, lit. Right? The revolution is lit.
Ahuru comrades, and welcome to today's Omali Taught Me Sunday Study live with the leader of the African nation, Chairman Omali Yeshitela. Today's study is not for idle participation. The study is serving as the go-to training for every revolutionary organizer. Chairman Omali Yeshitela will be reading the presentation, The African People's Socialist Party, an organization of organizers given by Chairman Omali in 1984. Following the reading, we will speak with party members in St. Louis, Missouri, who will contribute their thoughts to the reading, share their experiences organizing on the ground, and join you, the live audience, in posing questions to the chairman. The study materials are available in the Facebook and YouTube descriptions. As with every study, it's important that we share this video far and wide. This is not a training you can access anywhere else. Malcolm X was quoted saying, "We are not outnumbered, we are out-organized." This is why our task must be to become African internationalist organizers everywhere we are. So share, and comment #shared in the chat section once you've done it. To kick this study off with today's reading, I'd like to turn it over to the leader of the International African Revolution, Chairman Omali Yeshitela. Uhuru, Chairman.
Uhuru. Thank you very much, Comrade Director Akile. I want to welcome everybody to today's discussion, today's study. It's an extraordinarily important discussion study for an extraordinarily important time in history, where the world is changing right before our eyes, and people don't often have an opportunity to actually experience a changing of the guard in terms of world history and find themselves in a position of being able to exert themselves on history, to become actual part of a history-making process as we do today. So it's an extraordinarily important discussion, one. Two, it's an extraordinarily important study because it said something about who we are as the African People's Socialist Party. So we're talking about organizing, an organization of organizers. We're talking about that being the African People's Socialist Party. We recognize that we have established for ourselves as a party, as a revolutionary party, as an organization that assumes for itself the responsibility of actually overturning a social system that has dominated the world for almost the last 600 years, and to assert ourselves into history as full participants in history. This is an extraordinary moment, and the party is comprised of individuals, members who have come into the organization having determined that we will not live this way anymore, and that we will lead our people in a process to overturn the greatest power, imperialist power that has ever existed on the planet Earth. So it's not a simple task that we are talking about as the African People's Socialist Party. It is a party that is comprised of dedicated forces who are committed to African internationalist principles that include organizational principles, who have concluded that the only way we will be free as Africans and that the world will know a different future is that if we carry out our mission as the advanced detachment, that is to say, the leadership of the African working class. I want to say that because as we go through this study, what should become clear is that we are not asking on Africans to simply recognize ourselves as simply the working class. We're talking about a party that says that we are the advanced detachment of the working class, a party that has assumed for itself the role of the general staff of an oppressed and colonized people, upon whom the fundamental responsibility for leading the masses of the people to freedom has been concluded. So I want to go ahead and start now looking at the study, and so just please bear with me as I struggle through this this process. So here we are. And I'm going to begin with the introduction. I will remind people that this is a study that was done nearly 40 years ago. And there are important things to recognize about that, including the fact that some things that we reference will not have the same significance today that it did 40 years ago when this was made, when this study was done, when this training was done. And also, it's important that we see that many of the issues that we talked about 40 years ago are still roiling the world. And that's precisely because the same social system continues to exist. And that says something about who we are and what we have established our role and responsibility to be. We are not talking about organizing some people for some kind of strike at a factory that you see often so-called leftists engaged in. We're not talking about trying to improve an existing social system to try to find a better spot, a better place on the social system. Objectively, the African People's Socialist Party is comprised of forces, members of the organization who have assumed the responsibility to destroy our relationship with an oppressive social system that came into existence and maintains its existence at our expense. So I shall begin. On July 1984, the African People's Socialist Party held the Oakland Summer Project at its headquarters in East Oakland, bringing party members, volunteers, and solidarity forces together from around the US for a month-long work-study program. The Oakland Summer Project was created to forward the party's goal of mobilizing the African working class with the mandate to complete the Black Revolution of the 1960s. And we are taking on this study, brothers and sisters, within the context of moving toward July 31st, Black Community Convention here in St. Louis, and having to have the cadre, trained cadre, dedicated cadre that's necessary to bring this convention into existence, and to carry out this project of completing a well-recognized, well-organized agenda for the African people, the African movement in the city of St. Louis. So the Oakland Summer Project was held 20 years after the Mississippi Summer Project, led by the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, or SNCC. In the summer of 1964, Freedom Summer, as the Mississippi Summer Project was known, proved to be a critical turning point in the transition from the civil rights movement to the African working class led Black Power movement. Some of you, and maybe most of you, perhaps all of you, are familiar with Freedom Summer of 1964 in Mississippi. It was a powerful movement. The party's Oakland Summer Project took place subsequent to the US government's counterinsurgency against our movement for Black Power. This counterinsurgency or war against the Black Revolution assassinated or imprisoned many of our leaders, destroyed our organizations, and demoralized and criminalized the African working class with the importation of drugs and mass imprisonment of African workers. The primary work of the party in this period was to single-handedly, if necessary, create a movement to force the voice and interests of the African working class back on the political agenda again. The Oakland Summer Project launched much community door-to-door outreach and campaigns, including the party-sponsored community control of housing initiative, which was on the Oakland ballot in November 1984, winning 22,000 votes. During the Oakland Summer Project, workshops were held at the Uhuru House, designed to give political and practical education to the organizers and volunteers, including classes on the anti-colonial political understandings of African internationalism and the party style of work, which was deeply based in the masses of African people. The following presentation given by Chairman Omali Yeshitela on the basis of how to organize was a highlight of the Oakland Summer Project. Today, as social media activism is often a substitute for work among the masses, the party is printing an organization of organizers to keep alive the method of real on-the-ground organizing work as a cornerstone for all the work of the Vanguard Party on the road to winning African independence in our lifetime. So here we have the beginning of the pamphlet that I'll be reading from, the presentation that I made that was turned into a pamphlet. And some people have been made a bit concerned, especially subsequent to the pandemic that is recognized as COVID-19. Occurring within 600 years pandemic that we recognize as the colonial mode of production. Some people have been concerned about coming together again in person. And that's what we are calling, even this study that's being done today. We call on members of the party and our movement to come together. People, organizers, the masses of people need to learn how to be together again in terms of making the struggle, because people have been isolated and been just sitting in front of computers. And yes, there is some problems associated with that. I mean, I'm glad to see that there are people who wear your mask and things like that as a part of this process. But the thing is that despite the fact that we recognize there's some problem, we still got to be free. And that the greater pandemic, the one that's been killing us, the one that creates the conditions for which this other lesser pandemic occurs is the colonial mode of production. I just want to say that we did this presentation was made 30 some odd years following the summer project that was done, Mississippi 1964 summer project that occurred. That's where people learned much about the heroism of people like Fannie Lou Hamer and what have you. But many people do not know when we talk about the contradictions that we are looking at right now in 2022, that on the first day of the summer project of 1964, 3 human beings who were part of SNCC disappeared. Mm-hmm. The first day. And the question was, what happened to them? And James Foreman, who was one of the leaders of SNCC and who was the leader of this summer project, said they're dead. He knew that before we even discovered their bodies. There was Schwerner, Goodman, and Cheney, and they had been captured and murdered. And my point is doing the political work has always been, there's always been dangers and threats to it because colonialism is a killer. And that force that puts itself forward as the advanced attachment is the one that's going to be targeted most of the time. So this is something that we have to be recognizing. Yes, there are dangers and problems associated with trying to fight for freedom, but the greater danger is to be the slave. That's why there is a force that we call the advanced attachment, that force that will lead the rest of the people and counter and overcome the dangers that's necessary for us to be freedom and the discomfort that struggle sometimes involves. So here we are with the pamphlet. What we want to talk about is organizing. We want to talk about organizing the party and the people. First, we have to understand that practice without theory is blind. Theory without practice is meaningless. When we are talking about organizing, we're talking about practice, we're talking about concretizing our theory in the world. And this is important because a lot of people who, especially in the African community, who come from this Christian experience, like to talk about how faith without work is dead, which is the same way of saying that there has to be unity between practice and theory. If you believe it, then you got to act on it. Nat Turner was said to have had made the statement subsequent to his capture when he led this extraordinary uprising among African people in Virginia. When he was said to have said that he looked into the sky, you know, because Nat Turner came and put his message before masses of African people as something that came from Christianity, God, or something to that effect, because the white man would let you believe in his God. He wouldn't let you believe in your freedom, but you could believe in his God. And what Turner did was take his God and organize masses of people. And he said that he told the masses of people, he said, I looked into the sky. And as he said, I saw white horses fighting black horses. He said, I saw blood dripping from the leaves of the trees. And he said, he heard this voice saying, this you have been cursed to see. This you have been cursed to see. What does this mean? Mm-hmm. It means now that you see it, you got to do something. Yes. You can't just lay down and act like it doesn't exist anymore. This you have been cursed to see. That's why many people don't want to hear you. They don't want to see it because they know if they hear it, they see it, then they're committed to having to do something. And that's what the party is, comprised of individuals who have heard this and have accepted the curse as their curse to fight against the greater curse, which is the colonial mode of production. So, yes. Why must we organize? To win our freedom, we must organize to get freedom. The question of organizing is not an abstract question. We have no freedom. Therefore, in order to get freedom, we must organize. Our enemy is well organized and powerful. It controls most of the resources of the world. It controls most of the technology of the world. It has military forces, armies, tanks, bombs, etc. It is well organized, powerful, and wealthy. We know that. That's the thing that put us in motion. I mean, we know we're not fighting against something that is weak or something that has already collapsed. We're fighting against this powerful entity. It couldn't control us and the world if it were not strong and powerful. But we also know its weaknesses. So what do we have except organization? The workers have only organization. That is what we have, and we have history on our side. That is what our philosophy shows us in a very clear way. That is why we must organize to get our freedom. There are opposing theories in the world, but most of the theory that we are familiar with is the theory of the bourgeoisie, of the colonial ruling class, of the exploiting classes of the world. Therefore, in order to be free, we have to oppose the theory of the exploiting classes with the theory of the exploited people. We put one theory against another theory. Bourgeois theory is not innocent. It serves a particular purpose. It serves the interests of the ruling class. The organization of the bourgeoisie keeps us oppressed, but we must be an organization designed to free us. Listen, I cannot overstate the significance of theory. You must understand this. It's not good enough just to know how to do something. It's not good enough. The theory is critical. Listen, I just saw this man, Joe Biden, who presided over some ceremony at the white people's house just the other day. And what he did was that he got these people, a Japanese, somebody, a native person, indigenous person, and other people, and he's giving them medals of honor. And these people are getting medals of honor because they went through great difficulties. They faced shot and shell. They faced death and killed other people, etc., because they believed in this country. The indigenous people from whom the land was stolen. The indigenous people upon whom the power of the United States government rests. They're fighting and killing and dying with great conviction, facing all kinds of odds to fight against the enemy of the white man, against other colonized people, the Vietnamese people. Theory is powerful. Karl Marx once said that theory, when grasped by the masses, is a material force. It's a material force. Once people believe it, that's the thing that motivates people. That's what has them fighting you in your own house. Right? So, okay. So what we have done is create an organization of organizers. We must understand that the organizer must be a very responsible person, because we organize to do what? Be free. That is a very responsible task, isn't it? Yes. Then on the shoulders of the organizer, we're not just simply out there. We are organizing to be free. This is why above all, the organizer must be disciplined. It's not something that we simply do for ourselves. We do it for the whole people. That's why we get up early in the morning. That's why we stay up late at night. That's why we carry out the mission, because we are responsible, because organizers have to be responsible if we're going to make the revolution that we are talking about. The organization of organizers that we are talking about is the African People's Socialist Party. The basic organization of this party is the local unit. The purpose of basic party organization is that we do not simply go out and organize, but our organizing can be guided by goals and a purpose. The organizing that we do is informed by our general party program, which can be found in the basic party line, or the so-called creed, and in the 14-point working platform. We are informed by the political report to the Congress, titled, we're talking about the one at that time, The Struggle for Bread, Peace, and Black Power. There are other documents, the tactics and strategies, for example. The organizer must study, must be in touch with how the world is changing and what is happening at any given moment. That is the responsibility of the organizer. The organizer is a very, very responsible person. We just talked today. There's this war that the United States and the colonial powers are making against Russia. They were going to crush Russia. They were going to crush the economy of Russia. They were going to destroy Russia's ability to exist economically and politically. They were going to create crises in Russia. They were going to destroy the ruble, which is the currency of Russia. And now I'm looking at a news article today where Biden and his administration, now they found out they picked up a big rock, and dropped it on their own feet. And so they're trying to get everybody to agree that we're going to put a cap on how much we're going to pay for Russian oil, because Russia, even as they're attacking Russia, 10% of the world's petroleum is coming from Russia. And so that 10%, and that means that more than 10% of the people are relying on this oil, this petroleum, this gasoline. And they're concerned because as it's moving now, in a short period of time, price of gas is going to go up in the United States to $7 a gallon. That's going to create all kinds of political crisis. That means Biden is dead in the water in terms of his election chances, and the Democratic Party in this country as well. All around the world, white power is concerned with the outcome with this problem. You just saw right now, I think it was Sri Lanka, where there's rebellion, and the prime minister has said that he's going to quit because masses are rising up because of the price of oil and gas and stuff like this. This is the contradiction that they've unleashed. They've opened this box. What is it called? Pandora's box, right? They've opened this box, and all kinds of things have come out of it. Now they're trying to close it, but they can't put the genie back in the bottle. Can't put the genie back in the bottle. And so So, this is the kind of contradiction. We know what brought this thing together. So we have the ability to have confidence despite everything that we see Biden doing, despite what we see people having done on January 6th, despite what we saw happen in Buffalo when they killed all of those children, those people there. Despite the contradiction that we see in our own communities, we, the advanced attachment, can see the future. And because we can see the future, we can keep on running. And when everybody, they can sprint, and it might be good for 100 yards or something like that, we're going the distance because we can see the future, right? So the basic party organizations in this party also have the responsibility of organizing, initiating, and participating in the African independence struggle for our needs and aspirations according to the policy of the party. The policies of the party can be found in the documents Bread, Peace, and Black Power in the New Beginning, which is the main resolution that we presented at the first Congress of the party. Remember, this is written in 1984. There are other places where we can find African People's Socialist Party policies, which relate specifically to how we should move, how we should act at any given time. One document is the rules of party discipline. This tells us about our policies in terms of how organizers must carry themselves inside the organization itself and in relationship with the masses of the people. Also, we find this in the organizational manual of the African People's Socialist Party and in the pamphlet, Our Standards of Party Life, which states, quote, the basic party organizations have the responsibility of supporting and working with non-African organizations whose aims are to crush colonialist, capitalist, and imperialist monsters according to the policy of the party. Our ultimate responsibility is to win the masses of Black people into supporting the party's policies and our struggle for independence and socialism. Win the masses of Black people into supporting the policy, not our own, the parties. That means we have to be familiar and understand what the party's policies are. When we put an organizer out there in the streets or in the community, the ultimate responsibility is to win the masses to the policies of the party. Our responsibility is to win the people to our struggle for independence and socialism. An organizer must be responsible for propagating the policies of the party. That is a fundamental task of the revolutionary African Internationalist organizer. And African Internationalist organizers take the program and the policies of the party out among the masses so that they can become the politics of the masses. We're informed by the slogan inside our party, from the people to the party, from the party to the people. That's what we do. See, when we were doing work in the African community, when you're among the masses, you learn from the masses because the masses know everything. And then what we learned from the masses is they wanted to play some basketball. How do we know the masses wanted to play basketball? Because we saw them hook up these little makeshift basketball things in the middle of the street. And so from the people to the party, that's why you see down on West Florissant and College, a basketball court that's been created for the people. People said, we want a basketball court. They didn't come up to us. They didn't come to me and say, we want a basketball court. We knew the people wanted a basketball court because they were playing in the streets. And because they have not yet developed the recognition of what the possibilities are, because they have not yet achieved the kind of organization that will make that possible, because they're not engaged in the kind of studies that we are engaged in right now to help say how we're going to do that, the party, the advanced attachment, going to the people, learning from the people, then coming back, summing it up, and then taking it back out to the people. That's what we do. That's what we recognize our responsibility is. Ain't that right? Yeah. Yeah. So we understand the contradictions in society through our relationship with the people. The people are telling us, expressing their needs. Indeed, our basic information comes from the people because the people know all the problems and we are ignorant. We take the information from the people and then go, and then we organize this information to well-formulated position and programs. We go back out among the masses with our program. The basic party organizations have the responsibility to build the party among the people while at the same time developing African internationalist qualities among our membership to the maximum. That is to say, the party organizations have the responsibility to build the party among the people, while at the same time
developing African internationalist qualities among our membership to the maximum. We want to see African internationalist qualities built among the membership, not just go out and do some work, but in the process, this organization has a responsibility to build African internationalist qualities among the membership. Ain't that right? Mm-hmm. The membership must assume its responsibility as the advanced attachment. As Huey P. Newton used to say, the party is the ox upon whose backs the masses must be able to ride. And the masses can't ride an ox. That's always itself complaining about can't do this, can't do that, what, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We become the examples. We become the one that the masses want to follow. Otherwise, the masses follow pimps. The masses follow hustlers, dope pushers, and other kinds of forces out there that's imposed in our community. The masses need to see us and say, I want to be like her. You understand? Problem solved, tough, strong, fearless, relentless. Good. Yeah. This is what informs our practice. Again, practice without theory is blind. We are not sending blind people out there. Even if you can't see with your eyes, we have an understanding that informs us and make us see better than a lot of people with 20/20 visions like DJ Eddie at 96.3. Can't see nothing, but I feel every damn thing, you understand? Because he don't say damn, because he preaches a little bit. So part of what informs us is also the current situation, right? It's not just static, we just go and do the same thing all the time. The current situation also informs us, right? You say, well, I had my meeting, I did this and that. The current situation. Sometimes your meeting is made meaningless if it doesn't respond to what the current situation requires of us. That's why we have plenaries. That's why we have meetings like this, except what is the current situation that we have to respond to? So don't tell me how effective your meeting was. Say, how does that relate to the task based on the current situation? So at any given time, we are informed by the general program of the party. We're always attempting to accomplish the program of the party, but sometimes the conditions change. And the way we have to go about doing that must also be changed. From time to time, we will see that the party sums up the situation as it is at any given moment. That's what a political report to a plenary. That's a political report to the Congress. That's the meetings that we have summing up all the time the current situation, because we're not just out here to be here, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So as a consequence of our analysis of the current situation, we come to certain conclusions. For example, in a recent conference, our party summed up that, quote, this conference on the current situation calls on the African People's Socialist Party to escalate its efforts to deepen the class contradictions of the Black working class. This conference recognizes the African People's Socialist Party as the only force capable of leading the Black working class to consciousness of itself for itself. You understand what I just said? Because there are a lot of people want to muddle this question up. Oh, we all Black. We all Black, et cetera. But the working class must be conscious of itself for itself, selfish interest of the working class, because that's the critical question that will free us. Otherwise, you'll be doing the work for Uncle Sam, Uncle Tom, and every other uncle that's out there that will have you doing his work, her work for them, as opposed to doing your own work. We got a good Black president or a good Black vice president, etc. You see this Black person, but you must be able as a class force to recognize that your interest in the class and the force of this sucker is not the same. I've used the analogy, I hope I'm not too bad in time. I've used the analogy of, what's his name? Ronald Horse down the street.
Jones.
Ronald Jones? Mm-hmm. Anybody in here know Ronnie?
Mm-hmm.
You know him personally? Oh, but anybody know him? You know Ronald Jones, nice guy. You know how Ron Jones makes his living, don't you? Bodies, dead people, right? And so that's how he sends his children to school, isn't it? That's how he's got a nice house and big car and what have you, right? All this dead people. Do you think Ron Jones is happy? I'm not talking about Ronald. I don't want Ronald to be suing me. But the point that I want to make is that Do you like Ronald enough so that you're gonna die early so he can get the body? You don't like him that much, do you? No, 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 no. Ronald has different material interests than you don't. Both of y'all black, right? He black, you black, right? But his interest is for you to die, for your uncle to die, for your cousin to die, and if y'all do it a certain way, for your dog to die, because he gets the bodies. And that's how he feeds himself. That's why he feeds his children and what have you. He has a particular interest, and just because he's black don't mean that you're going to die early for him or you're going to get your cousin to die for him. You're going to live as long as you can. That's your interest to live long. It's his interest for you to die early. Do you see what I'm saying? You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. So that's why the working class has to be conscious of itself, for itself, because we have particular interests that's separate and different from the interests of the black petty bourgeoisie. They live at our expense. They need for us to die. They pray for us to die. If you don't die, then they'll poison the water. If you don't die naturally, you out there going to the gym and trying to eat good and stuff like that, and Ronald didn't get enough, not Ronald, but undertakers are not getting enough bodies, they put something in the water. They got to get the bodies because their living is based on that. And like I said, I'm not talking about Mr. Jones. I don't even know the man. And some people in here met him, but I'm just talking about in terms of where he's located in the social structure, in terms of what it takes for him to live. We have different material interests, and it's necessary for the African working class to be conscious of his own interests. And what helps the working class to be conscious of his own interests is this advanced detachment. It's not the working class. It can't come to this conclusion on its own. That's why it has an advanced detachment that helps us to understand what its interests are, its own selfish interests are. And that's the African People's Socialist Party. That's what we were created to do. That's why 30 some odd years later, while all the people who were supposed to be about revolution in the 60s and organization are long gone, while many of them failed the test of time, while many of them did not have the ideological and political stamina to make it to this point, the African People's Socialist Party is here. And we buried Huey P. Newton, literally, except he wasn't buried, actually he was cremated, but we are the ones who organized, the Ronald Jones in Oakland came to us when Huey was killed. We are the ones who organized his funeral. We are the ones who put an honor guard there for him. We are the ones who organized in the African community and said we need this and that for Huey's widow. We are the ones who marched down the street saying, who killed Huey? Don't tell no lie. The government, the FBI, the African People's Socialist Party was there. We are the ones who made sure they were not able to use the murder of Huey P. Newton as something that would kill the Black Revolution of the 1960s. The African People's Socialist Party did that because the African working class had its advanced attachment, that was able to lead the people to be conscious of and fight for itself as a class. So I'm trying to find, I gotta see her, because I'm talking a lot, comrades, and y'all ain't helping me to be disciplined at all. Yeah. So I wanna just make sure that I'm not, oh hell, I don't have that much time. All right. So as a consequence of our analysis of the current situation, we come to certain conclusions. For example, in a recent conference, our party summed up that this conference on the current situation calls for the African People's Socialist Party to escalate its efforts to deepen the class contradictions of the Black working class. This conference recognizes the African People's Socialist Party as the only force capable of leading the Black working class to consciousness of itself for itself. The problem is that the Black working class is acquiring consciousness, but it is not acquiring consciousness of itself for itself as a class. I met with a very, good brother yesterday who works really hard in different organizations to help our community. He's friends to the poet that we know, Tracy. Yeah. And Tracy is a very bright woman. And she's able of putting out a lot of stuff, helping us to be conscious of ourselves as Black people, but not the class conscious of itself for itself. That's the thing that's gonna make the difference. That's the thing that Tracy is gonna get from her relationship with us. That's the thing that the people, he was at the meeting last Sunday, maybe the meeting this Sunday. This is what they will benefit from a relationship with us. This is where we have to carry them. This is what the responsibility of the party is. The party is not just some ordinary people who just decide to come. What's your name? What's your name?
Colonial.
What do you mean?
Brave, never give up.
Brave, never give up. What's another way of saying that? Relentless, right? That's what the name means. That's who we are as a party. So it is, the problem is that the Black working class is acquiring consciousness, but is not acquiring consciousness of itself for itself as a class. It is acquiring nationalist consciousness. A nationalist consciousness is necessary precisely because of the conditions out here. But in order to have a class conscious of itself for itself, so that it does not confuse the interests of its interests with the interests of Lionel Wilson, who was the mayor of Oakland at the time, Jesse Jackson, or the Black petty bourgeoisie, Black workers must also be conscious as a class for itself. It is a selfish class. That is to say, it is necessary that it struggles in its own interest, as opposed to simply struggling for the interests of the Black petty bourgeoisie, the liberal bourgeoisie, or the next nice person that comes along. To continue with the report from the conference that I was quoting from. This conference recognizes the history of the African People's Socialist Party, being born directly out of the 60s, from organizations forged in Black working class struggle, having never divorced itself from the interests and struggles of the Black working class masses, having led and participated in struggles critical to the interests of the African working class, which includes Black prisons, Black women, Black tenants, Black resistance to police terror, having continuously attempted to transform the collaborationist political reality in the United States through mobilization of the African masses against colonialism with such programs and activities as the National Campaign and Mobilization to Free Desi Woods, the World Tribunal on Reparations for Black People in the United States, the African National Reparations Organization, the African National Prison Organization, having begun to move to internationalize the struggle of African people and to end our isolation from the international community, having initiated the move to unify the worldwide revolutionary movement of oppressed African people, being the only organization in the United States which through ideology, composition, programs, and proclamation represent the revolutionary interests of the Black working class. For these reasons and more, this conference recognized the African People's Socialist Party as the advanced detachment of the domestically colonized African working class. This conference on the current situation calls on the African People's Socialist Party to raise the mass demand for Black community control over our own Black lives and initiate the call to the Black working class and all its allies to complete the Black revolution of the 60s. 40 years ago almost, we initiated the call to the Black working class and its allies to complete the Black revolution of the 60s toward the end of leading the Black working class to consciousness of itself for itself. This conference calls on the African People's Socialist Party, the advanced attachment of the Black working class, to escalate its ideological and political offensive against all of the non-revolutionary forces which would misdirect the motion and dull the consciousness of the African working class, given equal attention to imperialist opportunism such as manifested by the Black petty bourgeoisie, the petty bourgeoisie, communist, liberal bourgeois alliance, as to other imperialist sectors as represented by the Reagan administration, which was the Trump of his era. Unquote. So do you see that? We give equal attention, not just to the big bourgeoisie, not just to the imperialist bourgeoisie, but also to those sectors that represent themselves to the people as progressive or revolutionary forces who would misdirect the masses and dull the consciousness of the masses for the task which lie before us. And that's what we are confronted with that in a very serious way in St. Louis. When you got these people who have been members of, we've got the people who have been part of the board of all the persons who commit all kinds of offenses against, but they're Black. They're Black. And so when the colonizer, who's white, who oppresses all the Black people, will punish them from time to time because they're Black, you Black, then you find yourself sympathizing with them because the white man is responsible, without being able to recognize they've always been tools of the white man. And even when the white man punishes them, they're using them against you. And they use them against you because what they're demonstrating is the inability of Black people to run our own business, that all Black people are corrupt and all this other kind of stuff. They're using them against you. That's why when they cut when they talk about reducing the wards, et cetera, and some Black people say, well, I don't want to, I don't care about them reducing the wards because the Negroes, they never done nothing for us anyway. They're not doing it to them, they're doing it to you. Because they know that one day you're going to wake up. They know that one day the African People's Socialist Party is going to come here and going to organize masses of people to use whatever instruments possible to take the power. And we would take every one of those 28 wars for the masses of Black people in this. That's why they did it. That's why they did it. But they can't, but this means that the advanced detachment has to really be the advanced detachment. And that's what we have to fight for every ounce of the way. That's why we're in this discussion right now. I'm going to go ahead and quickly, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to stop taking off like this because I'm already over time. So this is a dynamic party. It is a party not only composed of leadership, it is a party composed of leadership and the membership. There's a dialectical relationship between the leadership and the membership in this organization. All of us have a responsibility for this organization, not just somebody on top in the leadership. This is why our party sums up the world situation and our goals and put it out in a pamphlet form. It is to put out to all of the membership of the party. And it is put out for anybody else in the world who wants to understand what this party is about. We do this not only because it informs us, because it tells the masses. We make promises to the masses of our people. The masses can keep an eye on us and make sure that we do what we say we are supposed to do. This is different from what Jesse Jackson is doing. For example, I just read the newspaper today that Jesse Jackson had planned for 100,000, for a 10,000 strong demonstration outside the Democratic Convention in June. But since Jesse Jackson had met with Walter Mondale in private, it is now determined that Jesse Jackson will not have a mobilization outside the convention, but he will be meeting with the leaders of the Democratic Party in private. Don't come out there for any demonstration and expect to get any kind of information from Jesse Jackson. That's what he said. Because in fact, Mondale gave him $1 million to go out and organize Black people for Mondale and for the Democratic Party. That's what he did. He shut up and took that money and ran with it. So no, you must be an organization of the people. We put out a particular kind of politic and we ask the people to hold us accountable to this because we put out our line. Those who would try to take that and make false claims that try to show that we are not who we are supposed to be are clearly engaged in slander. It is not just that you have a dream about something and say, well, let's do this today and this tomorrow. We come out with well-formulated politics as a consequence of coming together to analyze what the situation is and to plan how to move forward. Some organizations with resources who call themselves revolutionary do not publish a journal that tells you what their views are at any given time so that you cannot know whether or not you can unite with them. But we don't have secret positions. That's why we put them in our paper. An organization with secret positions doesn't have to explain why they did anything to the masses of the people in an honest way. They can come up with any reason for why they did it. Our positions are not secret. Not only do we have the 14 points and the basic party line, you have various documents that we publish on a regular basis that explain why we do what we do. This is part of a fundamental struggle against spontaneity. Our organizers do not just go out and do things. An organizer is informed. You don't send a dummy out to organize unless you want dummy consequences. An organizer goes out to serve the people, or as the Black Panther Party used to say, to serve the people, body and soul. Take the program of the party out among the masses. The first thing we want to talk about is the code of self-confidence. Why must we talk about the code of self-confidence? An organizer must have confidence whenever we go out among the masses. Otherwise, the masses won't believe what we are talking about. If you go out there and say, I think that maybe we should, if we are, et cetera, the people won't follow you anywhere. No, an organizer must have confidence. We must demonstrate that confidence in our stance. In one of the recent issues of the Branding Sphere, there's a presentation I made in Oberlin, Ohio, in which I said, I don't know how many revolutionaries there are here. I move off the assumption that most of the people in this room are not revolutionaries. Therefore, I must establish as my task to win the people here to the revolution and consolidate those who are already revolutionary revolutionaries as to what the tasks are going to be. I'm quite confident when I stand up there because I understand the conditions of the world. So I'm going to make, just turn now to what we call the code of self-confidence on page 8. Number 1, the organizer must have a firm belief in and understanding of the ideology of our party. 2, must have a strong faith in the masses of our people. 3, must believe in the justness of our cause. 4, must trust in the inevitability of our victory. That's the code of self-confidence. In order to have a firm belief and understanding of the APSP's ideology, it means we must study, doesn't it? When we say a strong faith in the masses, we do not mean blind faith. We mean a faith that is informed by investigation in the first place of the laws of social development, and secondly, of the conditions we are confronting at the time. At any given moment, a group of Black workers may be capable of doing the most evil thing that you can ever imagine. At any given moment, a group of Black people are capable of struggling against the revolution. That is to say, we could not go among the dope pushers and expect that we can get them from them a revolutionary response. We could not even go to people who are under the influence, strongest influence of the church, or someone like Jim Jones, to try to get a revolutionary response. But our faith in the masses of the people is an understanding of the history. We understand that the masses of people do the right thing. If the masses of workers have education, a proper vanguard, and the program, the party in their grip, that is the basis of our faith. So we can go among the dope pushers. We can go among the church people, et cetera, et cetera. If we understand these things, we take it to them. That's why we have to be on the ground with the people all the time, organizing in the streets. A belief in the justness of our cause. If there's any ounce of doubt that our cause is a just cause, you can't have any self-confidence. If there's any doubt, if there's any lack of faith in the masses, you can't have any self-confidence. If you're a revolutionary who understands revolution as a social process. The revolution is not an act of individualism, but a social process, which presupposes the activity of the masses, the natural and democratic participation of the masses in transforming society. If you don't believe that you can win, you won't even fight. Some people in this struggle are in the struggle for the fight. The revolutionaries in the struggle for the victory. Yes. All right. Yes. So we got a lot of angry people who call themselves revolutionaries floating around this country who are mad as hell. They want to shoot at somebody at the drop of a hat, but they are not talking about the social process that lead to genuine social transformation that we are talking about. Man, did you see what that pig just did? Time to pick up the gun off the pig. What we are talking about is a trust in the inevitability of victory. We don't want anybody with a Samson complex. You know the story of Samson from the Old Testament. No revolution for the masses, not for death. So anyway, there's a couple more pages here that people will read and probably have read. And I'm calling on you to look at that. And even in this process that we're entering into now, we can use this as a basis for the discussion. Yeah. Comrade Akile, Director, Uhuru.
Uhuru, Chairman, I kind of wanted to tell you, keep going. It's so good. Such an electrifying study. Just really want to appreciate it so far. And, you know, the comment section is lit up here, and I can only imagine what it's like in the room right now. But just want to say, Uhuru, just salute your leadership. This has been a powerful, instructive document. As the chairman has stated, this document is in the chat descriptions for Facebook and YouTube, so you are able to access it in this way. So please feel free to continue to read this document, and we will have some time to discuss this more in depth, but we're going to give the audience time to gather their questions while we cut for announcements. So to start, if you are interested in volunteering with Chairman Omali Yeshitela's public relations team, here's a short video to show you how. Uhuru. So you saw those links there, and we'll talk a little bit more about that towards the end. If you are interested in joining, email volunteer@omaliyeshitela.org. So to continue on with our announcements, next Saturday, July 16th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, join Black Power 96 Radio for a special online concert that is part of the Black Power 96 Radio July Fund Drive that many here contributed to last Sunday. Freedom Mike Saturday Night Soul will be emceed by Black Power 96 station manager Eddie Maltsby and myself, Akila Anai, and will feature artists in multiple genres, including hip hop, R&B, Southern soul, reggae, and gospel. Register to join the exclusive Zoom room with the artists. Go to blackpower96.org/Saturday Night Soul. On August 6th and 7th, 2022, the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations will hold its 13th annual national conference in St. Louis, Missouri. The theme of the two-day conference is Concerning Violence, Political Power, and Guns, Black Community Control of the Police. This is a theme that recognizes the level of escalating violence being imposed on the lives of Africans and the colonized within the U.S. and globally. Your presence at this annual national conference will guarantee victory for our liberation struggle. So be there. Register now at blackisbackcoalition.org/conference. And make sure you like and subscribe to the Burning Spur TV on YouTube to catch every episode of the Omali Taught Me Sunday Study, and support the Omali Taught Me show by donating now at paypal.me/Omali Taught Me. Uhuru Tours and Speakers Bureau is an institution of the African People's Socialist Party that coordinates events and tours for Chairman Omali Yeshitela and other party speakers and leaders. So book Chairman Omali and other Uhuru movement speakers for your campus or organization now. Email info@uhurutours.com or call 727-914-3621. And for other announcements happening in the Uhuru movement, to check out what we're doing, go to theburningspear.com/events. You can see all of our organizations and institutions, all of the upcoming events that we are engaged in that you want to be a part of, that you want to attend. You can visit theburningspear.com/events to keep up with us. And the last thing I wanted to say as we wrap up announcements is that this discussion that we're having today around who the party is, the African People's Socialist Party, an organization of organizers, and the chairman has stated the whole question of the unity of theory and practice. And so we put our unity with this theory of African internationalism, the way in which we define this world, and thus define the task of every African person to join the African Revolution. And you can do that today by going to apspuhuru.org. Start the process of becoming a member of the Vanguard Party, the leadership over the worldwide African revolutionary struggle. This is the only vehicle capable of making it happen, and wanting to make it happen. So join the African People's Socialist Party, apspuhuru.org. There is somebody located in your city, in your state, in your country, in your region who wants to connect with you, who wants to bring you into this work. So connect with us, go to apspuhuru.org, fill out that contact form. Let's get you brought into the African People's Socialist Party, an organization of organizers. So comrades, we are back and we're ready to talk to some of the comrades on the ground in St. Louis, Missouri. And we have with us the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement President, Columbai and Danette, and comrades Maiza and Erica. So why don't we start off by having each of you express your understandings of this piece, and we'll have the discussion go from there. Uhuru comrades, welcome to Omali Taught Me Sunday Study.
Uhuru, my name is Maiza, and I just really want to appreciate this piece and how the chairman just really went into just really dissecting, the understanding of what it means to organize and to be an organizer, and just really speaking to the leadership, the relentless leadership that it takes, to understand the world as it exists, and then take that out into the masses and to the people, and to galvanize them to understand, the conditions that we face and this relationship that we have with the colonizer that needs to be broken, but what really stood out to me was when the chairman said, we have to believe that we can win this fight. We can't be so consumed by the conditions and the oppression that we're facing to where we can't see our way out of it. We can get out of this.
Yeah.
You know, the party has the solution, has the way. So that's why it's really important to understand, you know, what it takes to organize, right? And to carry, you know, this torch as the advanced detachment. You know, I don't want to, you know, express all of what I want to say. I want to give other panelists, you know, room to speak, but I just really appreciate this piece.
I unite with Comrade Myers, as just stated. My name is Erica Clark. I appreciate the truth that you hear throughout this entire document, and just recognizing that it's going to take ideological and political stamina to get through this work. And that we are the ones demanding the accountability of this system. You know, we are the ones, we're the voices, we are the advanced attachment of the African working class, making sure that we're constantly aware of the situations that our people are being faced with, that we are being faced with. And one of the biggest things that kept sticking out was just kind of towards the end, where it said, you know, the organizer must be constantly capable of demonstrating our commitment. The people will not follow us if they think that we are just driving, if they think that we are driving. You know, people don't see that consistency. They just see it and then they'll find that and be like, okay, well, this is just another tool that I've seen, you know, that's brought me into something thinking that I can do better for myself, do more for myself. And then when you see that stop, it's like, oh, so this wasn't real, you know, so then people fall back into the reality of what it was that they were used to. And so I just really appreciate this PE and the ability to take full participation in taking our own history into our own hands and pushing and fighting, because that's what we're winning the people to do.
Uhuru, I really want to appreciate Chairman's leadership and just like even looking at this document being like 40 years old and just today, it seems so relevant, like it was written last night on our current situation as organizers and how a lot of the pieces, even when it spoke to tactics and strategies, just all the different documents and how the party has always documented our history. I just really appreciate that and really want to unite with what Maiza was saying. Is confidence is everything. You know, confidence in anything you do, like confidence is in everything. And this document don't just say confidence, but it breaks down the confidence in the organizer, in the community, you know, like what we have to do to have that confidence in the party, the line, and what you're taking out. So I really appreciate that. And unite with what Erica was saying as well is if you don't have confidence and have faith, like, you know, like undying faith, faith, like, you know what I'm saying? I'm talking about having faith, like when mama, daddy, grandma, whoever is saying you crazy, or you have lost your mind, you know what I'm saying? And you saying, I have faith, you know what I'm saying? They like, well, everything else is saying something. You saying, I have faith that the African working class got to be free. So I really unite with that because that's the kind of faith we have to have as organizers. And just to add to it, the part that stood out to me, when I came to the movement, I was an evangelist. So I had, and I was 35 years old. So I had lived, you know, a little life, you know, and I had did some things. But when I came to the party, what I had to understand is everything that had been given to me for 35 years of my life and everything that I have ever learned from has been the petty bourgeoisie. And so some of those things, first of all, I had to despise it to be able to even use it. You know what I'm saying? Like I had to like understand that the church, like, you know, as an organizer, that came from the petty bourgeoisie. Then I was able to adapt to be, you know, this theory as my own. Then I can say, okay, you know, I know that knocking doors work because I did it in the church. I know how to win people to go out and use those things but you have to really understand is that you have to have a clear slate because everything that has been given to us. So I just wanted to deepen people understanding when you hear the petty bourgeoisie. Because when I first heard it, I thought, oh, no, not me, because I ain't never been petty bourgeoisie, because I've been poor my whole life. But everything that has been given to poor people has been given to you by the petty bourgeoisie, and you have to despise it. So I really appreciate this document. There's so much to say, but
Uhuru.
Yeah.
Uhuru, can I just say, it brought me to my mind, understanding the theory.
Mhm.
We have to really understand the theory and believe in the theory, because that's how we could put it into practice and take it out to the people.
Mhm.
So yeah, I just really appreciate the theory of African internationalism and just being able to put it into practice.
Uhuru. Uhuru.
Uhuru.
Go ahead.
Oh,
I
no,
just
go
had
ahead.
I have one other note that I had written down. And it just said, dedicated to training the community and bringing them into this work and providing the political knowledge and understanding needed to recognize the systems around them and how to remove ourselves from it and build something sound and sustainable for us. And I think that was just me recognizing what it is that the party is dedicated to doing with that statement there. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Chairman, I don't know if you wanted to respond to the comrades, and also if we could talk about some of the work that's happening, unfolding right there in St. Louis, and some of the intensive work that's been going on right now to build towards this Black Community Convention that you mentioned earlier.
Well, the work that's happening in St. Louis today happens in the context of a consciousness of the current situation. The current situation in the world. I mean, we've mentioned that a bit. This whole shakiness of a system that got born through our oppression, exploitation. The reason we catching hell now is that this system that we always denounce, sometimes without understanding what it is about it, just the system, but it's something that came into existence through enslaving us. It didn't exist before then. The thing that gave birth to it is the enslavement of African people, the initiation of the enslavement of African people, the capture of African people, our lands and territories, and how that related into capturing lands and territories of other peoples, dispersing us all around the world to make sugar, to dig holes in the ground to bring out wealth and things like that ended up in Europe. So the system came into existence like that. It's really important to understand that. And a problem is that there's a real limited worldview that's imposed on African people. I mean, here we are, like in Mali, where they had, years and years ago. I mentioned the other day, this brother, what's his name? Mansa Musa, and how like in 1328, he traveled something like 3,000 miles, from Mali to Mecca, and with 60,000 people, with gold given and everything. But what I didn't mention was from Mali, where Mansa Musa came from, the study of, people like to talk about astronomy and stuff like that. I mean, the mapping of the universe have been going on. That took thousands of years. It didn't, to see how everything is moving in the world, around the world, in the universe, so, you had this kind of thing. And yet now we live in a world where most Africa's worldview is limited to the village they live in. Whether that's in North St. Louis, right. Some people never even leave North St. Louis to go to another part of St. Louis. And I find that to be the case all where we're located, all around the world. And so the worldview of the masses has to be expanded. Who will do that? Where's that going to come from? How are the people going to understand better? You're going to find out looking at TV? You're going to go to some nonsense on social media? You're going to listen to this guy who's been promising you a university and taking all your money for I don't know how long now? It's the party, the advanced attachment has the responsibility of making that happen and taking that out into the world. And with that, I view and move from the question that Comrade Director Akili threw out at us. What was the issue that she was talking about first? The work in St. Louis. And so here we are in St. Louis. So the current situation is what informs us. And we see the whole world as it has been constructed by white power in a state of clear disintegration. There's no way you can doubt that. it's in a state of clear disintegration. The stuff is falling apart because it's been held together by oppressing and colonized peoples around the world. And every moment, every time somebody fights back, it shakes the situation like an earthquake. And so that's happening. Then in St. Louis, so we see this crisis of the whole system. We exist in this whole system. We don't just exist in St. Louis. We don't just exist here. We exist as a part of a whole system. When the comrades in Mali, when brothers and sisters in Mali, they didn't just look at the universe. They looked at the universe from a place in the universe, from Mali. And then they discovered it. And so that's how we, in St. Louis, we see that the system is in distress. We see that a part of this distress is reflected by what's happening on the ground in St. Louis. We have a situation where the rulers in this city have been disrupted mightily by the presence of the African People's Socialist Party. And this presence of the African People's Socialist Party came here as a consequence of the disruption that happened right there on Canfield Drive, right? Where masses of Black people rose up after the normal proceedings of the system, murdered Mike Brown, left him laying, rotting in the streets for 4.5 hours, 100-degree plus weather, as a message to all the other Black people here. This is what we'll do to you too. So everybody can come and see the dead Black man, big man, head, shot in the top of the head by this. This is the message being sent. And then the people rose up and then they said, kill the police. And this was something that was shocking to many of them. And this was when we were discussing this in St. Petersburg, Florida. Deputy Chair said, you got to go into St. Louis, Ferguson. And that was some discussion inside the leadership of the party. Should you go? That's a dangerous situation. She said, you got to go, because Sharpton going to go, and Jackal going to go, and the people need genuine leadership, right? And so that's what brought us here. And so that's the first thing that shook it up, was that. And but they sent every sellout in the country, and they brought some from international sources to St. Louis to mislead and misguide and misdirect the mass of people. We came here and we built on the ground. That's where I met Comrade Colombayi. I don't know if she was in that march that I was on August 30th. When I stood up on the platform, because the question we were talking about all along is that they can't say to what end. Okay, they're gonna have a demonstration. They have a demonstration. There are 3,000 people out there. Nobody's even got a clipboard getting names and contact. They don't want no contacts. They don't want no organization. They just want people to do stuff so they can go to the white man and say, look, boss, if you don't stop, then these people are going to tear it up, and et cetera. But so we were discussing that. And so I stood up on a platform August 30th. And what park was that in? Because I don't know St. Louis well enough to know where we were, what park it was.
It was Wabash Park.
So we're in the park, 3,000 people out there, and they took their time before even bringing me up on the platform. When I finally got up on the platform, I was there for maybe 10 seconds. And I said something like revolution, and they bum rushed me, pushed me off the stage. These are the people who organized the damn demonstration, right? So for our very presence, shook them up. Shook them up. I didn't have to say that. I could have said what everybody else was saying. But the thing is, we said here in this organizing study that we're talking about what my job was, and we had to complete Black Revolution. And because even though struggles were happening other places, we were in Baltimore when the uprising happened there. We were here because it looked like something was unfolding that was going to allow us to get a grip on this task of completing the Black Revolution of the 60s. So anyway, they pushed us off the platform. I'm marching. I meet Colombayi. I meet some of the other people who are here, and we build on the ground right away. We pull together organization. We initiate the process of building organization. We end up now, some years later, we end up dealing with the situation in St. Louis. We run somebody for office. We challenging them around this LRA. The fact that this is a process that started something in the 1970s, where they had created what they call this plan of benign neglect for the Black community here under Team 4, a plan that had actually been put together that said
consciously they were going to have a program that would undermine, destroy the Black community by building up all around it. And so, and one of the things that came out of that was the LRA, the Land Reutilization, what was it? Authority. So they take people's property. Listen, they take people's property from taxes. They take people's property from code violations and stuff like that. The old man dies, right? He's dead. The sister, she's still alive, but she's old. And so they come in, this code enforcement stuff, they drive them into the communities. And then they say that, you got to pay, get the stuff. She can't fix it. She old. Right. There's no process. This ain't socialism where it happens some otherwise. And so they end up taking her property. Right. They take properties for taxes and stuff like that. So how many properties? Thousands of properties they took from our people. And it's the land bank. They call it the land bank that has all of these properties. What do they do with these properties? They hold them there like a bank. And so anytime any process comes up where big, rich developers needs a bunch of land, they get it from that land bank. That's my land. That's somebody's grandmama. They steal it as a matter of policy. So we raised that question. Nobody was raising that question about LRA. When Kalambai ran for office, she raised the question. When we were here, we raised the question. When we were involved in transforming this community, people came up to us and said, there's a thing called the LRA where you can get land, property for cheap. But most Black people can't do it because they don't know, they don't meet the requirements. But I knew we could meet the requirements. I knew we had the skills, resources, etc. And so we got some of the land and began this process of transformation that shook up the entire environment here. So you have this crisis now. The crisis is that they have people are treating like the indictment and resignation of 3 Black older persons as this outstanding phenomenal kind of thing in some ways. But the fact is that in St. Louis, perhaps more than most places, the whole system revolves around a real practicing corruption, systemic corruption, if you will. Corruption is not something that's extraordinary, happens outside the system. It's systemic. So we've had people who've just taken all kinds of resources from the people, et cetera. Most of it having to do with land, economic development, that kind of stuff, right? So we disrupted that process. And these Black people who were just indicted and resigned and what have you, they are not peculiar. They're just people who the white man allowed to play the game for a while under its own terms, and so they caught up in it. So we are responsible, I'm convinced, of the fact that this whole crisis that resulted in these guys being indicted, raising up the LRA question, the relationship it had to African people, reparations, et cetera. So now here we are in St. Louis, and we've got magnificent economic development programs. I mean, people in the community and other places are seeing all this work that's happening. Somebody came up to somebody who, I don't know, Deputy Chair, came up and said that this is what economic development looks like. This is what we're looking for. This is somebody even in the system. Because that hasn't been happening for a community being transformed. The community of people have an ability to see themselves differently than they were just a few months ago. They can see themselves differently because of this building that we're in now, because of what's happening next door to it, because of what's happening down the street, because of what's happening on Goodfellow and Natural Bridge that we are initiating. This is what's happening. So right now, it's a critical moment for us to dig in. And not only to dig in, but to win the masses of African people here in St. Louis to adopting not only our programs as their own, but other kinds of programs that would advance the interests of African people that many people are involved in on their own in the community. This needs to be, we need to come out of this convention, have a convention of Black people saying this is our situation and give Black people an opportunity to say, this is the agenda that we're going to be fighting for. We see economic development with Black Power Blueprint is critical to the development of our community. We see other programs that people in the community are advancing, et cetera. So we unite the community in that fashion. So we're digging in, and right now we have a responsibility of having an army of propagandists here in St. Louis on the ground. People doing work day to day with the burning spirit, with day to day, my watch is talking to me. Day to day, it's having a problem hearing me. But day to day, doing propaganda work, there shouldn't be a place in St. Louis where our presence is not seen or experienced. And that's what we're doing. So, I've been going out doing drops. We've done several hundred drops. They've been doing drops from the Solidarity Movement. And I'm happy to say, and some of them are in here, some forces from the Solidarity Movement have come from throughout the United States. We'll be participating in an iteration of the summer project, a week-long summer project under the leadership of African People's Solidarity Committee. So we are having a strong presence and pressing like hell. And part of what the party is and going to be in St. Louis and some other places being defined right now by this struggle to do this work, to get the party out in this community, to win masses of people to this party, to this program, to this movement, et cetera. That's what it is that we are engaged in doing. And so I know I overtalked it, Comrade Director Keeley, but I do that.
Uhuru, Chairman, you don't get no complaints from me, and I don't think anybody else is complaining either. And I think that just what you laid out, it was exactly, what I wanted for people to be able to see, witness for themselves. So thank you so much, Chairman. And I do want to go into questions and discussion with all of the panelists, and because we are getting these questions and want to make sure people get them answered. So as we do this, I want to let people know where people are tuning in from. So we have Portland, Oregon, Oklahoma, Wichita, Kansas, San Diego, California, London, Oakland, California, Grenada, West Indies, Marion County, Georgia, Lakeland, Florida, occupied Azania or South Africa, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Chicago, Illinois, Jamaica, Gainesville, Florida, Huntsville, Alabama, Virginia, Fort Myers, Florida, Greenville, South Carolina, Eugene, Oregon, and Bermuda. Uhuru comrades, thank you for tuning in wherever it is you're located, checking us out on Omali Taught Me Sunday Study. So our first question came in from Comrade Life in Tampa, Florida. He asks, Uhuru Chairman, how does a party member know when to shake the dust off our feet and walk away from a person from whom we seek a revolutionary response that they do not provide? He poses this to the chairman, and of course, if any of the panelists feel compelled, you are able to respond as well.
Let me just speak to that briefly. First of all, our work should be a part of organization. So it's not just that an individual, we meet an individual, but we are on a quest that's defined by the organization. So we go out, we meet this person as part of an organization. Our objective in this city, if there's only one of us or two of us, is to build the party there. We can't build a party with somebody who doesn't want to be in the party, or somebody who's not interested in the question. So we set up processes through which we can meet people, win people. If they can be won, we win them. If they can't be, boom, that's it. So it's not, we don't spend a whole bunch of time as individual members of the party talking to individuals out in the world, debating like that. The objective is to build organization and to come from organization to bring people to organization. So I think that's the fundamental question that I think that's how we have to understand and approach that question. There are some people who are just, what do you call it? Yeah, they're just going to be on any question. They're just like that, Uhuru. Anybody want to? I mean, yeah.
I was just going to just completely unite with Chairman and say that, that's what I had always been taught in the party. And so just doing this intensive that Comrade Erica is leading, we were out doing outreach and we approached a person that was like that, and we had to just bless and release. We put out our line, we let her know where we are about her business. We had helped her to understand that right now you are putting out a petty merchant line. So she understood, and I knew that this is the first time she ever heard this rhetoric, so we had to bless and release. But that don't mean we won't go back to that store.
Yeah.
Because you just have to, as an organizer, you don't go into no argument.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's not what we there for. And Chairman also taught us that, like, you're not only talking to her, but the people around you.
Right
You know what
on.
I'm saying? So you don't want to get subjective with, with the line or anything like that. You don't have to do that. So I just.
Yeah.
And you can't convince someone who, that they are not free and need to be free, we could just show them, we could show them by organizing and things that we're building, economically and things like that, to just keep putting the party line out, again, as was stated before me, that struggle is going to be had.
Mhm.
So when to just shake the dust off your feet is in that moment, right then and there, and you just move on. So.
Huru. Thank you, comrades. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Life, for the question.
Let me just, you see, because sometimes we know individuals, right? And they are just argumentative. I mean, if you just can be arguing with these people forever, that's all they want to do all the time. They take your energy, they take the, what it is that we're supposed to be doing. Just have an argument with them. No. So what we are doing is, again, we're organizing for purpose. We're having a discussion, not just to have a discussion. We're having a debate, not just to have a debate. That's what Comrade Kalambai was mentioning. If there's something you put in a situation with somebody like that, there are other people around. You ain't talking to that person no more. You're talking to everybody around him. When it may appear to him that you're debating him, but what you're doing is winning all the other people around him. That's a tactical thing.
Uhuru, Chairman. Yeah, that brings me back to the elections when we had a task of going door to door, talking to the people. You only have a couple of minutes, to
That's
win.
right.
If somebody wants to argue with you, then they taking time away from the other person who's going to unite with the line. So Uhuru. So this question's coming from Sister Ugona on Facebook. Asked, what is the mission of this great movement? I would like to be physically involved. And this is directed to the chairman. And of course, all of our panelists, you are able to contribute. So,
Where is the sister located?
they didn't say.
Didn't say. Okay. Well, the mission of this great organization is the total, unequivocal, absolute liberation and unification of our magnificent mother country, Africa, that produces most of the wealth that keeps this whole machine running around the world. The complete liberation and unification of Africa, destroying those borders that the white man put there to keep us separated from ourselves and our resources and the peoples of the world, and uniting Africa and African people globally. So I asked where you were, but it really doesn't matter. You can still be a part of this organization. You heard there are people on this call now, in this meeting now, in South Africa, in Grenada, in Jamaica, in Bermuda, and throughout the United States, among other places, and London. And and we're talking about, generally speaking, members of our organization or our movement who are in those places.
For real. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Sister Ugona. So our next question is from Desiree in Oakland, California. It says, how do we organize African people while combating their immediate crises like housing, joblessness, etc.? I asked this question as an organizer with an organization here in Oakland that is struggling to organize folks with such great immediate needs for survival, but we are not a resource organization necessarily. And Oakland is experiencing a collapse in community-based organizational infrastructure and alliance since the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Our experiences in Oakland, by the way, require us to take that on. It requires us everywhere we're located, because there's no place where we're colonized where we're not facing the crisis that you're talking about. And most of our work, the most successful aspects of our work have revolved around uniting people to take on those kinds of crises that you're talking about, and taking them beyond the immediate situation in the process of doing that. For example, in Oakland, while we were out doing the political work in Oakland, we ran into the fact that, first of all, we ran into the whole question of homelessness and people being pushed out of their housing. And then in trying to take on the homeless question and organizing people around that, we ran into all these women who had problem with childcare. How the hell they can't do the work that they want to do because they got childcare issues. And so that becomes a question. So what we did was we organized around this question of childcare. And in the process of doing the other work around homelessness, we created a Black community control of housing initiative that we put on the ballot in Oakland that would turn the property that was being gentrified in the city of Oakland over to housing boards, community control of housing boards, where African people would be able to be on these boards. And people could be voted into position, and but where housing costs, rent could not be more than 25% of the people in any particular community, which meant that depending on how much money people had in those communities, that 25% obviously would represent a different amount of money. So West Oakland, there were people who 97% of the people lived on welfare. So that said something about what the cost of rent was going to be there. It meant that any property that was left abandoned for more than 6 months or up to 6 months would be turned over to the housing board using eminent domain. And on the housing board, only tenants and homeowners that did not own more than 4 properties could be a part of the housing board. And this board made the determinations of how land was going to be used. So if in 6 months, that property was left abandoned, then the housing board itself that was elected by people in that community would have the ability to take that land and then turn it over to the community for use for homeless people or any other thing we wanted. 1, 2. The other thing we did was the sisters who were suffering this problem became the core. And when I say this problem, I'm talking about now about childcare, became the core of the organization that we built, that we call community control. How was it characterized? African People's Child Care Collective. And so we had these sisters who, so many African families, households are headed by women who have the sole responsibility for childcare. That meant that it took them out of ability, political life, economic life, social life, everything. Because all they do is spend most of their time trying to take 24/7, taking care of children. So we put, and then you had laws that said that they couldn't get what they call certain kinds of help from the government if there was a man in the house or involved in their situation. So we organized this child care collective, so that we would win them, first of all, from the women and anybody else in the community who participate in this community, this African People's Child Care Collective. So nobody would have the sole responsibility for child care. That groups of people would volunteer and they would sign up and take different times that they would be responsible for child care for all the people who participated in the program. That we actually went out and this group would also do stuff like fundraising so that the children would not be hungry, so that we fed the children on a regular basis. We had education for the children. We had one child how old was Jamila? She could count to 50 in Swahili, and I think she might have been 5, 6 years old and what have you. This is through our own school. We were teaching French. There were people who were volunteering. These were our children. We had the healthcare problem, sister. And so what we did was organize the African people, the Bobby Hutton, African People's free healthcare project. So we had 40 different healthcare workers, pharmacists, dentists, doctors, pediatricians, you name it, who volunteered to be a part of this. And our children in that program are also getting regularly health checkup, and we went to the different communities providing that. So this is part of solving the problem and organizing people in a process, but it can't be done just on the terms that we can treat bad. The problem is that we have to define the contradiction as colonized people breaking out of this colonialism. And what we're doing now, we have to help people understand that the particular contradiction that they are confronted is we have to help them to see the universal contradiction that we're experiencing. I've talked too much, but anyway, sister, I hope that was instructive or helpful. Uhuru. I want these other comrades to talk. I'm gonna stop
I
talking.
just want to say, just really organizing, the people to solve our own problems and putting the problems, or putting the power, of the needs of our community in our own hands. The government, our oppressor is not going to do that. And we see that it's not going to do that because otherwise we would not even be in the problem, in the situations that we're in. Is to what the chairman said earlier, the undertaker is banking on us to die. Our oppressor is banking on us to be oppressed and to remain oppressed. So it's just really, I just want to just say it's really about organizing, the people to identify the problems and to come up with ways to solve our own problems. And I know it may sound, easier said than done, but that's what it's gonna take. It's gonna take that, just that will to just to do it. It's just no other way out of these conditions other than us taking, our problems in our own hands and finding our way out. If I made sense.
Uhuru, yeah, you do. And I just wanted just unite with what Chairman was laying out and what my comrade was just saying, and just saying that, right here in St. Louis, an organizer, and no matter where you are, you are a guerrilla. You got to live amongst the people to know what the people need, to know how to agitate them, how to move them this way, to move to the right. You got to live amongst the people. You got to be with the people. You are the people. You know what I'm saying? And, like Chairman said, we fighting for the minds of our people because we understand who got it, and so how do you get their minds? You got to be on the grounds. You got to be on the ground. This is how you organize them. And so then when you got them in the room, you got political education, somebody's like, yeah, we dealing with this, we dealing with that. And then all the genius is in the room on solving the problems. So when the virus hit, I was in full campaign mode. During the virus, as everybody remember, we was getting ready for the campaign, and I had children of my own, and my community had children that we had to say, how are we going to educate our kids with this virus going on? And I'm running for office. The solution was in the room. We started our own home. We was able to take kids outside in our community. I didn't have to not be able to hit the grounds and do whatever I needed to do with the campaign because we had comrades that was in there. Chairman was like the principal. What I'm saying? Like everybody was participating in, making sure that our kids didn't fall behind. And I'm really proud to say that when they went back to school, they was ahead of the game because what I had learned, because I'm thinking that these teachers are so brilliant, but the homeschool had you to be able to see what your child be learning and how they teaching it. And it made us be able to make struggles. Chairman Ranger right there in the room, her teacher, and he educating the teachers. You know what I'm saying? And all the kids that's not in the room. So, I just wanted to use that as an example that first, you got to be on the grounds because that's how you're going to organize the people, like living with the people, you eat with the people. You know what I'm saying? We came up with a deputy chair came into St. Louis. We had to take this terrain, and I was learning so much from a seasoned comrade that was helping me to understand certain things that I needed to fine tune in like being an organizer. So one of the things that we started doing is having a table out front, and we started a bag sale. You know what I'm saying? Because we seen, and then everybody, this is the best dressed people over here because we was dressing the community, but we didn't want to just give clothes away because we're not charity. You know what I'm saying? The people, like Chairman say, let them participate. And so the bag sale was important. It was bigger than just $5, but they was able to say, yeah, my $5 is a donation for Black Power. So just always being creative, you know what I'm saying, and being an organizer and being a real living amongst the people.
May I just contribute to that? I want to say to this comrade who raised this question that ultimately what we're talking about, well, we said organization, but there has to be an organizing toward what end.
Yes.
And I'm saying you need to join the party of the Uhuru movement. You understand? If you haven't already done that. I mean, we have a glorious history in Oakland. We need forces to help rebuild, everything we tried to do in Oakland. And we have a magnificent center in Oakland. So the thing is, you need to join the party and be part of a revolutionary project. And the other thing that you have going for you is that people have the ability to believe in themselves because they can see themselves in you. You're not some big shot from, descending among the masses from somewhere up high. And they recognize their possibilities. So that's one thing that you've got going for yourself. Uhuru.
Uhuru, we see that with AMWO and the Arrest CPS campaign, and the women that come in with that specific need, being able to provide those resources and finding out the ways in which we as organizers can help those parents that are coming into this process and trying to process everything that the system is taking them through, but bringing them in to take ownership of that situation, and also finding and providing the political background for them to be able to understand how they can then go out and help other mothers. Because one of the biggest things is that, you'll find mothers saying, I don't want another mother to have to go through this. So then really taking that drive and how do we continue to grow that and foster that to continue to fight for organizations, to fight for revolution. So, Uhuru.
I'm gonna end it. I know we got to, but one of the things that I'm continuing to hear that I just want to say again is it has to be informed by theory. Because you could be an organization with the wrong theory and then what, you just another EBT line and you got somebody, 2 people a job, but you haven't, it's not going to deepen the crisis of colonialism and how we're going to cause it so kids ain't being stolen. And that's the difference with Arrest CPS. Because there's other organizations that's doing that type of work, but which ones are helping the African woman to understand what has really been stolen from her and her child, and how she has to participate and be on the front lines, that we can't see some gender, we can't be some feminist, but we African. And so theory, everything that we talking about, everything that we are informed by when we live amongst the people is a theory. So, education, political education.
We're standing on.
Yeah, sometimes, like I say, like a worldview is limited, and most times. And the fact is that, a lot of people have been caught up around this Supreme Court determination around Roe versus Wade and the inability of women to get abortions now. It's created quite a crisis. I just want to say that the way that affects Africans and how it should be understood by Africans is different. And we're having that discussion right now, by the way. And that is that the main problem for African people is not Roe versus Wade, even though we find African people, women may be most, I've read that one who are mostly getting abortions. And it ain't just because African people are poor, they're getting abortions, because I come up with time, women have had 15, 16 children living in the worst kind of poverty. That's not it. What has happened to African people is this major assault by colonialism on the structure of the family.
Yes.
So that the family is this what do you call it? What they call this kind of family?
The
Nuclear family, where you just the husband and wife and 2 children and the dog. That's the family. But we didn't come up like that way. That's not part of our tradition, our history. That's why that thief and thug Hillary Clinton steal this thing from you, that it takes a village to raise a child. And not just some one woman and a man, and you in bad shape now because there ain't no man in the house. The fact is that we as a community have taken care of our children. It's the village that's taking care of the children. So that a decision that a woman makes in any given time is not just her decision based on my needs. It's a decision based on the kind of community that we live in. It's a social community. It's socialism that we have lived with and existed with. I never knew what a foster care child was. I mean, we grew up in a situation, if somebody died, a mama died or something like that, somebody took the child. It wasn't even like a burden. The child just, it might have been somebody in the family, it might not have been somebody in the family. That's just the way it worked in our communities. Now you have a situation where this is a decision that every woman for herself. You understand? You got to make a decision for yourself, and you don't have a job, and how you're going to do this, all this other kind of crazy stuff comes into play. Under the life, in terms of the structure of the family, the way we lived is that
there was not individual poverty in our community. Everybody might have been poor, but no individual is going to be poor because the community always got together and took care of. That's literally how we grew up. My lifetime, that's what I experienced. You understand? And that was African. And that's part of what has come under attack. So it ain't cause she's so poor. No. It's because the family structure, colonialism has imposed these structures on us, how we survive, how we live. Man can't be here. You can't do this and that, et cetera, et cetera. The husband, you know, when they used to ask me who your family members are, you be putting your grandmama and your cousin. And sometimes in our community, people ain't in our, who are not even related to us are our cousins. That's the way we have grown up. But then the white man comes with this notion that the family is the husband and the wife and the two children and the dog. That's the nuclear family. Anyway, nuke the nuclear family.
You heard, Chairman, you heard, comrades. Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, most of my cousins I know are not even, they're not my so-called blood.
Yeah, no.
They're my cousins.
I mean, the family structure in the African community normally, naturally is different.
Yeah.
There's major assault that's being made on that, not just here, but all over Africa too. It's under assault, you know, that they place these economic structures on us.
Yeah.
So that, you know, like when I was growing up, there was no such thing as putting old people in an old people home. What the hell are you talking about? We used to think that was such a horrible thing. Couldn't even imagine that. It happens now.
Yeah.
But the economic structures and things like that imposed in our communities, you know, is what's you know, created that situation. We got to overturn this stuff. Anyway, there is no future under colonialism. The colonial mode of production has to be overturned. That's what we're doing.
Uhuru, Chairman, comrades. So we are winding down. I do want to get to Comrade Jamal's question because Jamal had raised a question last week and we couldn't get to it. So I want to definitely raise Comrade Jamal's question. This will probably be the last one before we go into our closing remarks. So Comrade Jamal from Moorhead, Minnesota, asked two questions. One, and this is for, I think, for Agitprop. I'd like to salute the chairman for the study and updating with commentary today. Just a couple of questions. One, is this going to be published in pamphlet form? In this training, the chairman has put a number of theoretical texts into a single document, melding African internationalist dialectical and historical materialist theory and practice. And to that question, yes, this will be printed in pamphlet form. And then the second question is, in building the work on the ground in St. Louis as a part of organizing the Black People's Convention, is this the practice of quote unquote social and economic investigation is to arrive at a correct appraisal of class forces and then to formulate correct tactics for the struggle mentioned in other theoretical texts? I believe this one is actually from, he cites Mao Zedong. So that's the question. Chairman, comrades on the panel.
For people who may not be familiar with, Mao Zedong was an extraordinary leader in China. He led the Chinese Communist Party in the Chinese Revolution. It was an extraordinary, there was something that could be learned from that, because one of the things that distinguishes Mao is that he called himself a Marxist, but he called it Marxism with Chinese characteristics or something to that effect. And he actually violated most Marxist principles, making the assumption that the primary social forces were the industrial working class and the industrial bourgeoisie, and based his movement on the peasantry, because that's how most of the world was, you know, living. And so he led an incredibly significant movement. And the thing about, I want us to remember about Mao, that he talks about investigation and things like that, but this was not you know, like you do your social studies, your social work, where you get a flyer, you get a you know, thing, and you go door to door and knock and ask people, you know, what you think about this and what you think about that. It was actual practice. It's the kind of practice we're talking about now. It's kind of being out in the streets and working with the people. It's how we came to the basketball court. We didn't come to the basketball court by asking anybody, y'all need a basketball thing. I mean, this is, you learn with the people, from the life of the people, et cetera. And then, and of course, you want to get as much empirical data as you can in the process of doing that, but it's not that kind of data-driven investigation. Data is going to be important for us, but like I said, it's not that kind of process. So yeah, investigation is extremely important. And that's why we talk about, working among the masses of the people. Let me tell you, there's something that's called empiricism. Like empirical data, information and stuff that you can quantify, you can write it, and you can get all of that kind of stuff. But empiricism is a way of seeing the world or understanding the world that you have to be able to see it. You have to be able to experience it, see it, in order for it to be useful. There's some people believe that if you don't see it, it ain't real. If I can make it disappear, then it didn't really happen, right? But we're not empiricists.
Right.
We believe in using empirical data, but we're not empiricists. And what I mean by that is I've used as an example before how once you understand some laws, then you can come to certain deductions. Is that what you call it? You can come to certain conclusions without actually seeing, some things happen specifically.
Right.
Like we know something about the laws of gravity. I know Carmen Aisha knows about the laws of gravity. That's really important to know something about the laws of gravity. So we had scientists who were able to look through those instruments and see planets. And they were able to determine that other planets were there, not because they saw the planet, because they understood the laws of gravity. They say there's something that makes this planet that I can't see wobble. It's wobbling. Why? Because another planet is coming somewhere in its proximity, and the gravitational pull is what's making it wobble. So what we're looking at wobbling things all the damn time, even if we can't see, like the specifics of we're not empiricists. We don't have to see everything to know that there's something real about it. We understand some things about the laws of gravity. And Comrade Aisha, and this is what we're up against right now. We need a physicist like Comrade Aisha to help us understand this stuff, because there's a law that has to do with, what do you call it? This thing that's not in motion, it's hard to get in motion. What do you call that? Inertia. That's a law of physics, isn't it? Inertia. Something that's not in motion, it's hard to get it in motion, but once it's gone, the law of inertia says once it's in motion, what? It's hard to stop it, right? And that's happened in our political life today. That's what we're looking at when we try to get the party in motion. It's hard to get it in motion if it's not in motion. If the community is not in motion, it's hard to get it in motion, but you get it in motion, God damn it, it can't be stopped. And that's what we're involved in doing right now.
Uhuru, comrade. They said that's it. They just dropped the mic. Uhuru, comrades. Well, I do want to really appreciate our panelists. Quick closing remarks from comrades Colombai, Erica, and Maiza before we turn it over to Chairman to wrap us up and close out the study. Uhuru, comrades, floor is yours.
I just want to really appreciate this study on today. I find it an honor to just be, one panelist, but what I find to be, the pressing matter, and that's overturning colonialism. And that's overturning our conditions as it exists right now. And we can talk about the problem as it exists all day long. We've already known the problem. We've known it all of our existence under being colonized. So I just really want to just make a call to just really join, the party, join this organization, and overturn this colonial structure that has us oppressed, because all of the complaints that we have is because of colonialism. That is what needs to be overturned. That is what needs to be destroyed. That's why we're organizing, and we gotta get this revolution and continue this revolution of the 1960s. Yes. This is just an amazing, just an amazing time that we're in to really just carry out, this revolution and get our freedom, comrades. So, hooroo.
I
I unite with the statement that Comrade Maisa just laid out. And just myself look, I came all the way from Portland. We're out here. We are pushing this intensive on the ground in St. Louis. And so for all my comrades out there, we are fighting this fight for the community, for the people. We are doing this work to analyze the situation that's going on in the areas that we're in and finding out the greatest way to move forward, the greatest way to remove ourselves from this system and build something for us to stand on for ourselves. So,
World, this been an amazing study as all of them are. And I just really, again, want to appreciate being able to be a part of this panel with such dope revolutionaries. I was sitting here thinking about my closing statement, and I just wanted to do a call as well, just really call everybody that's watching, whenever you watch this, as Deputy Chair Omali Yeshitela always say, the lines have been drawn. The lines have been drawn. As my comrade, we all have gripes and complaints. So what is it to lose everything to gain your liberation?
right.
And I would say when I was in the church, and I'm gonna say it as a revolutionary, who life is not in the revolution, then who's my sister, who's my brother? Like, if your life is not wrapped up in the revolution and you want to fight for my liberation, it's nothing to lose. You know what I'm saying? So I say to you, join the party, join the Uhuru movement, lose everything to gain everything. And that's to gain your real mind, gain your real eyesight, gain your real taste buds. Everything has been tampered. They have not left anything untouched. We have to gain everything. So join the party.
Comrade Director and all the comrade brothers and sisters, members of the party, the Uhuru movement, and everybody else, I just want to, first of all, salute you, Comrade Director Akile, for overseeing this process and making such a seamless process occur for us, such a professional process every time. And we're working with limited resources. Some people may not recognize it who are not here, but even before we started, we're complaining about we need this and that, and we're gonna get it to make it what it needs to be. And so I want to, just really express my appreciation, Comrade Director Akile, and also for your being this youthful and energetic and extremely powerful face of the African People's Socialist Party. I think that's extremely important because we're talking about an organization that's 50 years old. And the relentlessness of this party is something that's represented in your presence, Comrade Director. I also want to really express my deep, most profound appreciation for the members of the African People's Socialist Party who are here in St. Louis. And because it took an element of boldness, because we had to go against so much of the grain here in St. Louis to do what it is that we're taking on now, the way the politics is done. It is a really well-defined ward kind of politic, and the African petty bourgeoisie plays such a treacherous role. The grip has had on the masses of African people, and the fact that you've stepped forward, I want to really respect that and express my appreciation for that. I want to also say that the comrades from the Solidarity movement who are here, they're pretty close to 20 of us all together in this room today, and pretty close to half of them being colonizers, leftists, not leftists, but solidarity forces. And many have come from various different places. And we, as you may know, we've opened up a new Solidarity Center here in St. Louis, opened up a new front in the African Revolution behind enemy lines, so to speak, within the settler community itself. And I want to express appreciation to you. I want to express also thanks and appreciation because we're talking about the work that's being done and has been done in St. Louis. And it's hard to even get into this discussion in terms of practical expression of African internationalism without mentioning the Deputy Chair Omali Yeshitela. We talk about the basketball court and they talk about the doula program. We talk about the Black Power blueprint, and we talk about different expressions of the Black Power blueprint, including the existence of the Solidarity Center in South St. Louis. When we talk about things like the Uhuru Bakery Cafe that's going to be established on Goodfellow and Natural Bridge. We are talking about practical expression in this building that we're in right now, practical expressions of African internationalism and the leadership of the party that Comrade Deputy Chair Omali Yeshitela is responsible for. And the African People's Socialist Party itself. 50 years we've been here, and not in fits and starts. And when I say 50 years we've been here, I don't mean that there are people like me, 50 years old or more. I'm talking about an organization that has 50-year history of relentless struggle for the same thing. So when we talk and have this discussion and meeting today, this is a discussion and meeting today that is informed by 50 years of practice, 50 years of scientific investigation that the Comrade Jamal spoke to when he raised the question and used Mao Zedong as an example. This is what we are talking about. So it's not some kind of truncated process. It's 50 years of continuum, revolutionary continuum in the form of the African People's Socialist Party. So I want to just say that and call on people who are in the party and who are the movement to double down. This is our time. Yeah. This is our time. Almost everybody in the world now is talking about colonialism. They weren't talking about this just a couple of years ago. Everybody talking about colonialism. And we're going to take them to understand the colonial mode of production, because that's the easy part to say colonialism. We recognize colonialism, but to say the whole system and everything in it revolves around a mode of production that has its origin in the attack on Africa, African people, that has spread throughout the world and connected the whole world into a single oppressive dialectical process that exists between thieves and those being stolen from in terms of system. That's the nature of the system. So I just wanted to say that and thank everybody. And with that, just want to say relentless.
Relentless. Vanguard up. Uhuru, I want to salute this incredible discussion we've been able to have, and I want to thank everyone who has participated. We should all be able to leave this study with the understanding of our responsibility as a revolutionary organizer. I want to thank our panelists, President Colombai, Maiza, Erica, and of course, our leadership, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, and to all of you for tuning in. Make sure you like and follow the chairman on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and subscribe to the Burning Spear TV on YouTube to catch every episode of the Omali Taught Me Sunday Study, and volunteer for the public relations team for the chairman by emailing volunteer@omaliyeshitela.org. Join the African People's Socialist Party. Vanguard up, relentless.
Yes.
Uhuru.
Relentless. Uhuru.